How's it going, everybody? I am Donut. This is, of course, a Black Lives Matter, all cops are bastards, and trans rights supporting channel. If you're not supporting that shit, get the fuck off this channel. Now, this video is probably going to be coming out pretty late. I'm gonna try and do these as, get them up as early as I can, but, going through a lot of shit right now, pain-wise, dealing with that, so, sorry about that. It's gonna come out when it can. I'm really, today's not even a great day for me, but I'm still just trying to get it done so it's not coming up like a week late. Anyway, this episode is limonada. Limonada. I don't know how the fuck you pronounce this, 'cause I don't even know what it is. Limonada. Also, it does seem like we're just sticking with the lowercase stuff for, this season. So, first season had the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 before every title. Then we dropped that for season 2. Towards the end of season 2, we started doing the, lowercase stuff. We also started doing, an equation in there, or Ronnie / Lily and stuff like that. And so now this season they're doing all lowercase, it seems, maybe. So I'm sure that's just aesthetic reasons only. My god, I let my dog in and out of my room about fucking 5 times in the past 30 minutes, so sorry about that noise. But yeah, let's just jump into this. I got no real predictions based off that title. If you want to get the full length, check it out on Patreon below for $4 a month. Where do we even start to talk about this? My heart, I have not been that tense in a long fucking time, where I don't know what, I know what he would do, and I know that he wouldn't do stuff because he's still just waiting for that, but it's that tenseness of putting yourself in Gene's shoes, of how the hell, what would you do? What would you do in this circumstance? It brings out that in you so much. What would you do in this circumstance? I haven't even said let's go to discussion. I just launched right into it. I don't know where I'm gonna make my cut, because I have to redirect these now. I was really hoping I could get them on YouTube, but that was the fastest I've ever disputed a copyright claim, and they went, no, fuck you, blocked. We reviewed it and said no. Normally they take a whole month, but no, that one was nope, fuck you. Holy shit, guys. Okay, let's start at the beginning. So, the plan was, we're gonna get Gene a job. We're gonna get him a part. And God, of course, that's extremely hard to do because he's a terrible person. It's interesting because I like that, Gene's character is mirroring Henry Winkler a little bit, in that he is solely in that he used to be very, very, getting a ton of roles, versus now, at least I don't keep up with his career or anything like that, so I don't know, maybe he still is. But either way, it has that sort of, he was very famous when he was young, not as famous now. Which is certainly true, even if he is still getting plenty of roles. When you have roles big as the Fonz, it's, how are you going to get more famous than that? You got that, one really big thing at the beginning. Is it Haley Joel Osment? Is that the guy who's in The Sixth Sense? I might be getting that name wrong and thinking of somebody else. I am terrible with actors. But either way, him as well. He gets roles now, but it's never going to be... I mean, he's not even old, but it's never going to be, the role in The Sixth Sense, which is crazy because I can't even think of that guy's name or anything, but The Sixth Sense is just such a huge movie. Compared to, someone like Daniel Radcliffe, who is also, a child actor who has had much bigger roles since then. So yeah. But anyway, why did I go on a whole tangent on that? Although we're doing that sort of very light mirroring of the actual actor Henry Winkler, it is still so divorced from it, I assume, with how awful of a person he is to work with, and bringing a loaded gun onto the Full House set is the most fucking yeah, of course that would be something that he would fucking do. His character is, so many of the characters in Barry are you would feel insane trying to describe them to somebody who hasn't seen the show. Not even just by the things they've done, but just trying to encapsulate what makes them tick. I don't know how I would describe Gene What's his name? Gene Cousineau. I don't know how I would describe him other than like very specific anecdotes that I can imagine him doing. Like, same with No Hank. It's hard to describe him other than like describing something he might do. There's no words to encapsulate the kind of characters they are, and you would just feel insane trying to describe it. And I love, in general, speaking of like sounding insane, with the end of the episode with Kuzuto describing things and how insane he, like, even if he went to the police, it would sound insane, and they would not believe him, especially after Barry has already been cleared. And especially after like Gene has said this multiple times, it's not like a new revelation. But this show really walks that line of like, it's stuff that could happen in the real world, but it's like so many coincidences and so much stuff that is like hilarious, but could still happen, and arguably is more realistic than something like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, in the sense that like there is a level of realism you want in a show that includes suspension of disbelief. But then there's stuff like Noah Hank and Cristobal having that whole very, very emotional talk, and then Cristobal gets in his car and he's playing a fucking talk radio thing, or just like the way any of the criminals in this show act. Like, well, we just got looking at the Jimmy Kimmel thing or the Jurassic Park thing, whatever, and it's like, yeah, like, of course, the criminals are not, like, most criminals are like, using Breaking Bad and stuff, like Skinny Pete, Badger, I can't remember the third guy's name, but like, yeah, it's more like that rather than like the super serious, I am always super serious mode. Like, I doubt that exists in real life very often. If anything, they would be overly edgy, overly more like Jack from Breaking Bad. But like, yeah, I love this show really tackles the sides to characters you don't get to see normally in TV and movies that would definitely still exist. And like, honestly, characters like Noah Hank and Cristobal are very different from the average common criminal, both in nature of their like dealing with being queer in a world that doesn't really accept that, and also like, well, specifically with like the kind of gangs that they come from as well. I'm sure there are plenty of queer criminals that run with gangs that are very centered around accepting of that sort of stuff, because not every gang is bad, but still, you get what I mean. Like, these kind of like organized crime stuff, and especially very rooted in deep family stuff. It's the same like coming out to your family as coming out to your family here. It's just in this one, like, one, your family's gonna ostracize you, and the other one, the family's gonna shoot you in the head, or shoot your lover in the head and force you into this sort of stuff. But yeah, even aside from all that stuff, they are very, very, very well read, well spoken, very particular in their tastes. Again, it's very like what is the word for it? Like metrosexual. Even though they are just straight out queer, but they have such insanely metrosexual like likes and aesthetics. Also because they are coming to America and expressing themselves once they are here, and then like that is the sort of like culture they have latched onto. Is that it's so particular. It's so hyper specific. Again, it's so hard to describe any character in the series because they're so fleshed out and so human. You cannot attribute them to any stereotype or even like multiple stereotypes on top of things. Like, they're just so fully human. Every single character is. That's why, like, I'm glad Cristobal were getting that as well, because like Cristobal was kind of like just similar to Noho Hank, but in a more position of authority. And it's interesting that now Noho Hank is kind of taking that role, while Cristobal is taking the more Hank role, where he's more scared all the time, and it just has that much more flamboyant while trying not to like be overtly about like trying to pretend that he's not that. It's interesting. It's a fascinating dynamic those two have. But yeah, I talked about it before, but yeah, I really, because also I haven't felt this tense since like Breaking Bad, and I think there's obvious like parallels you can make to this and Breaking Bad, like clearly, but still, it's so insanely different, and I do love that aspect of like Breaking Bad can be more realistic in these ways, and Barry can be more realistic in these ways. And I also love that Barry is not afraid to do its like heavy. It is a comedy series more than it is a drama, but the drama is so good. Whereas like Breaking Bad has funny moments in it, but obviously that's not even like a side to the show really. Whereas this, I guess you would call it a comedy drama. But yeah, you would not call Breaking Bad a drama comedy or anything like that. But still, there's obvious connections, and it's fascinating the different kinds of reality that you can have. What feels more real in one way versus what feels more real in another way. Yeah, it's just love it. And then there's stuff like Kuso and the dogs, which is like too ridiculous. Like, there's no way someone could have that many dogs. I mean, again, yeah, they could, but you have to suspend your disbelief for that. But yeah, it's just there's differing levels. Whew. Oh man, I am hurting myself because I'm so into this and talking about it so ecstatically that I'm hurting. But okay, so yeah, I should have seen it coming that Barry. I'm all over the place with this episode. I'm all over this with my discussion. That Barry was just gonna try and get Kusno a job, and like again, so ecstatic. I figured it out. Here's how I'm gonna get forgiven. I'm gonna get him an acting role, and then he's just gonna love it and apologize to me and say, "Oh, I love you, Barry. I love you," and going in and being like. Barry doesn't understand how things work, and even if they shouldn't work the way they work, that's the way they work. And so he's, hitting this wall of like Sally being like, listen, if the casting people said that Gene is not right for this, I trust them because I hired them. If it was someone else, she might be like, hating on the casting directors or whatever, because plenty of casting directors can be awful. But she hired them herself. She wants to believe that whoever she hired is the best person for the job, and so thus she should trust their opinion. And that is what a good director should do. It's like the directors that do fight choreography and stuff like that, and like they will really hire a specific fight coordinator, or they'll like really want to get involved with it. And it's like you should hire someone that you trust and let them do it, so that way your fights can look really good. Rather than when you get too involved, it doesn't. And do that for everything: lighting, casting, all this stuff. If you don't let the people that are good at that do it, then you're gonna end up with bad shit, especially in casting. You're gonna end up with a lot of nepotism stuff. It's not a great thing to do. And like at the same time, I do understand it would be good to give Kusno a role, but I think maybe the problem is that it's too far in. It's too far gone. That's even before any of the moving up stuff. Even before the release date got moved up, it's still far too into its production to like do a second chance for Kusno and see if he's good, at it. Because it's just the time crunch is real and it's not gonna happen. So I can see the other side to it. Obviously, the way Barry went about it was awful, but there is a shred of understanding there, but yet that's just not the way it could go. And if Kusno, it is the classic like, you're a horrible person in your past and you deserve a second chance, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that the people that you were an asshole to have to forgive you because you're better now than you were in the past. Because what you did in the past still mattered. We had the entire episode that was past equals present times future over yesterday. Your past is still just as important as what you are doing today times how you want to be. Divide that by whatever you did yesterday, right? Like you can't just start in the present. I was just talking about that episode title with my fiance, so I can't believe this is so relevant and everything. But like, the dividing it by yesterday is so important because the present today, what you were doing on that day, if you are a better person today, that's great. And in the future, you're going to be a better person. Great. But if yesterday you were an awful person, then that still cuts that whole thing in half, because it's not enough time has passed for you to have truly changed yet. But even then, with all that stated, it is slashing in half is like the relapse. The yesterday is the relapse part of it. So it is like your past is equal to how you are acting right now, even timesing that by you being a better person for the rest of your future, and then dividing that by the relapses you have, and that's as equal to all of your past. And it's true. Like, even if Gene is a better person now, which arguably, I like the guy, but everybody in the show is awful, awful, awful. And like, Sally's like one of the least awful, and yet I feel like people give her a lot of shit. But now, getting into the show, she is definitely one of the least awful. She is just a tragic character, tragic. A lot of her awfulness comes from her trauma. Like, she uses her power when she can, because she can't in most other circumstances. She feels like she has no agency in most situations, so when she does have agency, it gets to her head very quickly, and she becomes not an asshole, not a bitch, just kind of like, overly authoritative, overly, like, to the point and unempathetic. But yeah, like, and Barry's experiencing it too. Your past is as equal to all that shit. It doesn't matter if you changed. It doesn't matter if you're given a second chance. That doesn't erase your past. You can't erase your past. There's no getting past that. There's no changing that. That's just going to always be there. And that, is established for a lot of stuff going forward as well. And the more you continue to harp on the past and, how to put it, the more you are expected to be forgiven for your past, the less you will be forgiven for your past. Unless you are owning up to it and you are, like, just moving past it, just ignoring it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, ignoring it's a bad word as well, but a bad word for what I'm talking about. But I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like, the more Barry is like trying so hard to be forgiven, the less it's possible to be forgiven. And that doesn't mean that wanting to be forgiven is bad. It's just like the expectation that you're going to be, right? You can have the hope, but you can't have that expectation. And that's the line there. That's the dividing line. And yeah, that's very applicable to a lot of real life stuff. Just because, you are different, just because you are a more progressive person now doesn't mean that if you were a less progressive person in the past that you should be forgiven for that stuff. You can be, and you can hope that you could be forgiven for that stuff, but you shouldn't expect that. And, Barry is not that kind of person. He has been an awful person for a long, long time. The war story is fucking awful, horrendous. The things he has done as a hired killer have been awful, horrendous. He has done a lot on his own. You cannot chalk it up to being groomed into a lot of stuff, which he was, but he also did a lot by himself, so you can't chalk up to anybody's influence. And then, he's not changing a whole lot either. Like, there's not a whole lot of new there. He's really wanting the forgiveness before he changes. And he's gone, There's, by the first episode, I was thinking maybe there's a universe in which they're going to try and make Barry forgivable at the end of this, give him a happy ending. I wouldn't have wanted it. As I said, I think the only character I want a happy ending for is Noah Hank and Cristobal. And they've done some awful shit too. Noah Hank likes murder. He likes torture. He is a bad person. But still, he's the only one that I kind of want a happy ending for. Sally as well. I do. It's just, it's more entertaining not to have this. It's so rough because it is that, like, it's more entertaining seeing these characters go through hell. And as much as it hurts me and it hurts my heart and it tenses up everything, I want to see him go through this shit. It is like, oh man, seeing Sally in the same kind of relationships we watched before, saying I just want to make you happy, is the most depressing shit ever. And yet, God, do I love to see it, because it hurts so much. Ah, it's that perfectly painful writing that I love. We're just falling right back into it. But yeah, No Hank and Happy and Sally are the only ones that I kind of want to see have a happy ending. Barry, I don't want him to have a happy ending. I think he's got to end in. I feel like he's got to die by the end of the season. Like, I feel like that's the only end for his character is somehow getting killed. But who would he possibly get killed by? Again, the comparisons to Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a show in which Walt is constantly trying to act like he is the biggest, baddest motherfucker out there. When, in all truthness, he's not. He is very far down on the totem pole in terms of, like, agency. You know, being able to do stuff, being the baddest motherfucker out there. I mean, I would say he has a lot of agency, but in terms of being the baddest motherfucker out there, there are 1,000 people who overshadow him, and it's about using other people in a way to skirt around that or to get on top. But at the end of the day, you know, there's no like, oh, how is he possibly going to die? Because it's like, well, I mean, he could die in 1,000 different ways. There's so many people who could do that, versus Barry is like, who could possibly on Earth kill Barry? There's like nobody. There's not a single person I can imagine taking out Barry. So how would he die other than maybe like suicide? And even then, I can't imagine. I mean, he did say, if I don't get this, I'm gonna die. So maybe he would do the big kablooey. I don't know, but I feel like that's the only way this can end is with death. And I'm glad that we are going full unsympathetic Barry now, full serial killer mode, the most detestable human being you can imagine, willing to kill a grandchild, and like, yikes. Like, it's even more detestable than like, I mean, I don't want to talk about like Breaking Bad specific stuff, but it's more detestable than anything Walt has ever done, and Walt is definitely one of those big, awful, bad villains of all time. You know, like barely disgustingly evil. It's hard to imagine people worse than him, and yet here we are. Barry so willing to just be like, I'm gonna kill this kid, and then I'm gonna kill your kid. An absolute nightmare. Again, that shot at Gene at the end is. I said that Sally was the best actor in the show, but now I'm like, I don't know. Henry Winkler, pretty good. He's just like the kind of character that he has been playing hasn't had many moments like this. He's had a few moments of breaking down and being depressed and stuff, and being in mental turmoil, like with the Janice stuff, but nothing on the level of being confronted with what he was confronted with at the end of this episode. Oh my. I mean, just a whole cast of insanely good actors. Unbelievably good actors. I guess let's talk about the more nitty-gritty stuff, like the Barry coming in and screaming at Sally and just like being exactly how he acted as Sam in the play, and Sally apologizing for that. I mean, again, I've talked about that already, but just holy fucking Christ, what is gonna go on with the girl in Sally's play, or not her play, her it is a show. Yeah, they did say it was a show. What's going on there? You know, like she's our like a new character that's experiencing both like abusive shit for the first time and this industry for the first time, and it's a pretty awful scenario to be in. It's terrible. The Bolivians are here, and how again, I think the way we're dealing with the Bolivians is Barry is going to take them out. It's going to be he's got a job, he's got a role now, and then he's going to have like a job now, like in the sense of like a job being a hit essentially. But yeah, it's just it sucks that they're going to have to crawl back to him. And the shot of NoHo Hank as well watching Cristobal leave was just, again, amazing acting, sad as fuck. Like, it is the how do I even, okay, it's like the queer representation in this episode was top notch. Some of the best I've ever seen in anything ever. Because this is what I want. This is what queer people have been saying for years. Like, there's like two main things that I feel like a lot of us want, right? We want to, one, just do the normal shit you would do with straight people, but with queer people. You know, give me normal rom-com scenarios with queer people. As simple as that, you know? It doesn't even need to be about them being queer. It doesn't need to be about the difficulties of that or anything. It just needs to be about that. It just needs to be about a normal rom-com scenario, but it's with queer people. Simply that. Or second, and the thing that I want the most, because I'm not even a huge fan of rom-coms and stuff, so I don't care. I don't like normal rom-coms, so I wouldn't really like that much. It's something I've stated multiple times, of like, there's a lot of like, you know, this is a show about queer people, and I don't even watch a lot of those shows because it's not what I want. I'm not into those kind of shows at all, whether it's straight or queer or anything. It's just not my cup of tea. The shit I love is this kind of stuff. The stuff where you get great queer representation in shows that are otherwise about something else. And again, I would also love it having this where just any of the characters in it are queer. The main character, like if Barry was queer, I would love that as well. You know, it's not, I am definitely not saying that I like shows where the queer thing is like not relevant to the story or like side characters or something like that. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I want more queer shit that is not about this character is queer or like a more romantic thing, but it is more about like a crime drama sort of thing, or it is like set in space, or it is whatever, you know, a post-apocalyptic thing, shit like that. That's my cup of tea. That's the stuff I love to see. I want it, you know, it's the same idea as the rom-com stuff, but just with different genres, and that's where I'm coming from. But yeah, I also love this shit where it's like, as amazing as the character stuff is in the Sally and Barry stuff, and like how emotional that is, how traumatic it is, how toxic it is, and then we have that same sort of stuff going on with NoHo Hank and Cristobal, where I wouldn't exactly call it toxic, but it is tragic, it is emotional, it is heartbreaking, it is tense, it is shit that is not just normal relationship problems. It is shit that is compacted by the plot 1,000-fold. It is integral to what is going on. It is a main plot line. Whew. It is so fucking good. And like, you know, like, it's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, we knew Noah Hank was queer for the entire show, but, and like, I wish we could have got stuff like this a little bit sooner, but at the same time, I like that we're getting it now, you know? It's the kind of thing where it's like, it feels like they were skirting around it a little bit at the beginning, like, it's funny that there's a criminal sort of thing. And it's like, that's been done so many times, but with No Hank, it was done in an amazing way, you know? I don't think it was done bad. It was done fantastically, and I loved him, and everybody loves his character. He's like the fucking best character in the show. You know, everybody, the moment they see him, falls in love with No Hank. I mean, again, they were going to kill him off in the first episode, and people loved him so much that he was kept around. Again, similarities to Breaking Bad with Jesse. Yeah, it's just super, super well done. So I'm not knocking it, but it's definitely the thing where we were skirting around it a bit, you know, playing with it. Oh, isn't it funny that he just wants to get together with Cristobal and not take over the operation? Whereas now we're treating it seriously and going into it in a major way, very relevant to the plot. Their relationship is as important as every other relationship going on in the series right now. Again, whether it be romantic or like the relationship with Gene and his son and his grandson and stuff, or the relationship between Gene and Janice and stuff, or shit, even like Loach and fucking his wife and Ronnie and all that shit. Like, it is relationship shit that is also weird and complicated with the plot going on and all this shit that's like crime and police investigating and all this just complicated shit. Whew. Again, I love the scene of Sally being like, this is not how normal people talk, and yet, like, that is how some people talk, you know? There are plenty of people who can, like, it astounds me when people are able to talk about political stuff in, like, very coherent ways. And like, yeah, I mean, it's just like it always astounds me because like whenever I talk about political stuff, it's very tons of ums and ahs and using metaphor and not knowing the actual words for this stuff. So I'm trying to like say like this kind of thing or that kind of thing because I don't know the official terms and stuff like that. And that's always where I feel like that like this is not how normal people talk when I'm listening to a real person saying something that they clearly haven't prepared to say because it was like brought up to them. Yeah, it's crazy. And then like it's also very obvious when it is like this is like a speech that you wrote out versus like this is something that's just off the dome because it's so obvious and they've like studied this stuff that they can speak like that rather than like a lot of actual politicians that are like fed everything and it sounds so fed. But yeah, that scene is very like the inadequacy that she felt in that moment. Then when the other girl was like, "Wow, this is crazy," and then the confidence comes right back up. And yeah, like the fucking just everything from Barry getting the part and like immediately being like going to Kusuno, who's going to kill, making him interpret the scene for him like his teacher and everything like that. Just trying to grasp at some sense of normality here, but it's just. You can't. It's way too far gone. And also, by the way, the Pam with the exclamation mark thing, that, I don't know if it's on purpose, but man, that did make me think of, like, they were playing on the meta thing of Barry and Breaking Bad. Of, like, Breaking Bad is this much more, like, what you would traditionally call serious, realistic, very gritty take on this kind of show versus Barry is the much more comedic Barry with an exclamation mark. Ha ha ha. Oh, who's the main actress in this thing about a serial killer? Well, I guess the main actor in this thing about a serial killer. And oh, it's Bill Hader. Who's Bill Hader? Oh, he's a hilarious stand-up comedian. Oh, I guess he's not a stand-up comedian, but still, it's got that same sort of energy there that I wonder if that was supposed to be on purpose or not. But yeah, either way, I think there is connections you can make there. But yeah, so anything else to talk about in this episode? Just the set design in this season is insanely good. Again, last season I think also had some really good set design, but it was really like like the Ronnie and Lily had great set design. I remember that, but I don't remember any other things having fantastic set design. Versus when we are in Crystal and Hank's house, or when we're on the actual sets, or when we are in Sally and Barry's house, which that was always a good set, but even now it's so specific to the state they are in. Or when we're in Kusuno's house, or just in the writer's room and stuff. It never feels like, oh, there's just stuff here. Oh, what do we have to decorate this place? It all feels so integral to the character that you can look around and just see stuff that is just informs the character and everything. But yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about this episode. Man, I feel like I could go on and on about this forever, but one of the best episodes of television ever. People have said that about Ronnie X. Lily. I didn't agree. I don't think Ronnie X. Lily was one of the best episodes of television ever. I think that is way too much of an over-exaggeration of that episode. It's the best of the show, but it's not one of the best episodes of television. It just was not. This, absolutely one of the best episodes of television ever. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact that it's just called limonada, there's no relevance. It's just such a small little thing. Oh, man. But okay, I will see you guys for the next one. Until then, get the fuck out of here.